Hello, everyone. Finally, you're welcome. We're here. We're doing Robot of Sherwood.
It's time.
Yay! Yay! Everyone's favorite episode. The most watched episode of Doctor Who ever. Everybody loves this episode. If you can't tell, that's intense sarcasm. Because I really don't think this episode gets talked about at all. Really, if you think, it's never in like people's best episodes, but it's never really in anyone's worst episodes either.
No, I think it markets to a very specific niche of person.
It certainly does.
And I feel like
and unfortunately,
I think the older I get, the
Mm.
less this kind of episode is my thing.
yes,
I did write a note, and I think this is very true. I think this would be an excellent Sarah Jane Adventures story. I don't know if it's a great Doctor Who story.
No, I think that's
spoilers on my thoughts.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a fair point. So if you don't know this episode, or you've forgotten, which you may have done, this is episode 3 of series 8. So we're in Capaldi's first series, only his third outing, his third adventure. If you can't beat Breath as an adventure, which I guess you can. And he's travelled back in time to it's Nottingham, isn't it? Nottinghamshire. Yeah. And he runs into Robin Hood, who is doing cliche Robin Hood things with a cliche band of merry men against a cliche sheriff of Nottingham, against not so cliche robots. Clara's always wanted to go meet Robin Hood, and this has sort of spawned. Think of like Amy and the Romans and the Pandorica, etc. It's kind of that. It's the thing that she's always wanted. She's always been obsessed with as who's younger, and she wants to go and see if it's real, if it exists. And there's a whole thing around, he's not real, and then actually maybe he is real.
Oh God.
And that's a whole like subplot underneath. But effectively, as with all Doctor Who episodes, there's an alien threat, and it has to be dealt with. And the Doctor begrudgingly has to accept the help of Robin Hood. And hijinks ensue throughout. What did you think of the overall? What did you think of the episode, other than it being a Sarah Jane Adventures episode, as a Doctor Who episode?
Of all the Doctor Who episodes I've watched, this was one of them.
Yep.
You see, I'm so torn over it because I think like the target audience, I think, would enjoy this. If I was 9 years old, I'd enjoy it. At the time, I thought it was okay. I was still quite disappointed with it because I'm just a big Robin Hood fan. And it's a bit too silly for my taste in 2024. I think would be what I would say. But that is kind of Robin Hood, so I like that they lean into that. I think this would have been better with Matt Smith, as was intended. This was written for 11, and I think that's painfully obvious in the bit with the spoon.
Yes.
I maybe to put this so early in Capaldi's run, and he's so grumpy at this point as well. I don't know. Maybe even in series 10, I think this would have worked better.
I wonder if it's just that we've still got the script. Let's get it out of the way, get it in early, and just
you can't
move on from it quick.
Waste all that time, can you? BBC had to save money. They can't just hire someone to write a whole new script when they've got one they can use. Exactly. So I get that, and also it was affected by real world stuff at the time. Some very unfortunate timing with the climax of the story, which I think would have had a bit more of an impact. I also think that's why people don't talk about this one as much. A, because it's not very good, but also because
it's generic.
Yeah, and people don't want to just bring up, the beheading episode.
Remember?
Let's talk about that. Yeah, that's one of my favorites. So I also think that was just unfortunate, and I think that would have probably had a bit more of an impact with the ending. So I think that guy does kind of lean into one of my positives and my negatives even, and they can't help removing things they had to remove, shall we say, because of some awful stuff that was going on. But they do lean into the Robin Hood stuff with it being kind of corny, because Robin Hood is a corny character. Like, even in the book, they do all this corny shit, and then for one chapter a witch turns up and curses them and then carries on. They never mention it again. So it's wacky nonsense, but I did love it. But I do feel like, and it's a 45-minute episode, so it does feel very basic, bare bones Robin Hood. They just did the Golden Arrow competition and kind of left it at that. I think they tried to do more with it. Kind of works, kind of doesn't. I just think some of it falls a bit flat. I think some of the guest performances weren't very good. Maybe a certain maid, Marion.
Okay. Yeah.
But I think that also kind of takes away maybe some of the impact of what's supposed to be this great emotional reunion at the end.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Which isn't ideal.
Oh, it's her. Oh, okay.
Oh, it's you, which I did like, but also I'm like, it's her again. Oh dear. But yeah, it's just an episode that would probably work with a different Doctor at a different time, or just on a spin-off show. So that leaves it in a Doctor Who way, just not quite my vibe anymore. I was kind of lukewarm to it at the time. I think I probably like it even less now, unfortunately. Which sucks as a big Robin Hood fan. But yeah, I feel like it just kind of falls flat in most areas, and it's just a bit too cheesy. Sometimes the cheese works; it's quite funny, but I don't think it's worth the moments where it does work overall. I would say.
Yeah. I think the best way to describe it is this is typically proof that this is a family show. I think this is the most family show episode you could ever have. There's some stuff in there.
It's wild that we're going to go from this.
yeah.
And then in like 8 episodes' time,
horrifying.
The dead can feel when they're cremated.
Yeah. This is the high point for Capaldi. Everything else is just downhill from here.
Depression and pain from here on out.
Yeah.
This is the only chance he can actually have fun. Even then, he spends most of the episode being annoyed by Robin. So yeah. It's definitely an important aspect of Doctor Who that it needs to do sometimes. But I do think some sillier episodes were done better before and after this, I would say.
Yeah, I think that's fair enough. The only thing that could make this episode better is some Nardole inclusion. I think this would be perfect.
No.
This would be a perfect Nardole episode, I would say.
To be fair, Nardole would suit this episode, but I also hate Nardole. So that would genuinely make this unwatchable for me, I think, if Nardole did.
Oh, I can't wait till we actually get onto him coming. That's a while away.
Maybe I'll end up being a huge Nardole stan by the time we get to series 10. Maybe he'll pleasantly surprise me. I generally have never, ever, ever rewatched series 10 because of Nardole. So I am excited to get to series 10.
Wow. Series 10 is like one of my favorites, I think. It's so good. Just overall.
I've rewatched the finale a bunch.
Oh yeah, obviously.
Sorry, I'm just plugging in my laptop. That's why I'm leaving off screen.
There we go. That explains it. So as always, if you've forgotten, because it's been a while since we've done one of these, we do positives and negatives. I'll kick us off. We may be slightly similar with some of these. We may be wildly different, but I think both of our vibes are similar. My first positive is the dynamic between 12 and Robin.
Yeah, that's kind of like one of my bonus ones.
I think it could have been quite stale, but I think that when they're in prison and when they're fighting each other, like
that's really funny. I think
that's great. All of that's great. And when they drop the key because they're fighting, they drop it down the drain. I was like, this is just it's good. Buddy cop movie vibes from that.
Yeah.
Which is great, and I think it does sort of. It does grow. Obviously, I think the change then is when he realizes there's a spaceship and he potentially isn't real, even though he sort of is. And then they have the whole little interaction at the end as well, where they kind of come to a rapport about they're the same. They're just at different times and they have different restrictions on them. In the Robin Hood can only do Nottingham, but the Doctor can do obviously the universe. I think at the start you're very much positioned to be. You either are on Robin and Clara's side of, the Doctor's being terrible, which I think is how the kids are supposed to receive it.
Yeah.
Or you're on the Doctor's side, which is how I think the adults are, which is, God,
that Robin fucking annoying.
Yeah. And I think that's the way I lean. I'm fully on 12. I'm on with his sass.
Because even like the dungeon bit where 12's actively rooting for Robin to have his head cut off. I'm just like,
yeah.
He firmly believes that. He's happy to go jealous.
I'll take longer to die. Thank you very much.
Yeah. I'd win though, wouldn't I?
So, I think their dynamic's great. I think it's if they didn't have that good of a dynamic, I don't think I think the episode would just be dull. I think this at least brings in some fun to it. Which I'm really grateful for. And it doesn't, I don't think there's obviously the risk of it being too much, but I think they just about managed to ride that fine line and not make it unbearable.
And it is something a bit different that when they have a historical figure in it, if you can call Robin Hood a historical figure, who knows if he exists or not, that the Doctor doesn't get on with them. That is something a bit different. Because he normally does get on like Churchill and Charles Dickens and like
Agatha
Shakespeare, Agatha Christie. They vibe straight away and just are on the same side. So it was something different, at least, that he just couldn't stand this man.
Yeah, which is fair enough. It's completely. I understand everything he's saying.
Yeah,
and I've never.
As a big Robin Hood fan, my God, like I'm so happy when 12 pushes him in the leg.
But yeah, it's great. And obviously, there is that. You can see that change when Robin fights Ben Miller at the top, and he does the same trick.
It's the same move. Yeah, they learn from each other.
Yeah, I really like their dynamic. I just think if it was in a better episode, I think it would have worked better. And we may be being like, oh, why didn't Robin Hood just come along as a companion? Because there could have been that, that route if it was in a slightly less campy episode.
That'd be a great way of explaining like why we don't know if he exists.
Why he disappeared.
He just disappears.
Yeah, exactly. Cool. That would be great. Unfortunately, no, it doesn't happen.
But no.
No. Imagine Robin in Listen next. Just put it in
that would be hilarious.
Well, it's just him knocking on the door outside. What's your first positive?
My first positive, surprising no one, is Clara.
Yes, I think that's fair.
I think she's easily the best part of this episode. I like the, I guess, fangirl side to her, seeing something a bit different from her, seeing her, I guess, a bit more emotionally vulnerable. We saw that start off with Danny in the last episode and that kind of connection. And we kind of lead into that a bit more, like her just like quite giddy to meet Robin Hood and everything. It's nice to see like an interest that she has.
That's not teaching or babysitting.
And it kind of leads into the whole teaching thing because she does teach literature and stuff. So I think it would make sense that she is like a big Robin Hood fan. So I really like how that kind of ties in together. It feels like a natural progression for her character, which is cool. And just her being absolutely done with Robin and the Doctor's bullshit. When she's
up there to start. She's like, oh, for God's sake.
When she just yells at them to shut up. She delivers that line so well. And then when the guards come in and they just assume that she's the one in charge, and she's like, "Bye." That's all great, and I love her scene with the sheriff, and she kind of tricks him into revealing his plan and everything. It just shows that kind of clever side, and it's a very doctory thing of her to do. She is the Doctor in that scene. Yeah. Wonder where that's gonna go. So the signs are all there, guys. So yeah, I did really enjoy everything she kind of brought to it. A few new layers to her, and yeah, she was just kind of, I think she was saying what the audience are thinking when it comes to the Doctor and Robin arguing all the time. So that was great. And I just enjoyed everything she had to offer. So yeah, I just love Clara. We know this, but I think if it just been, I guess, the Doctor and Robin in this, I do think you need that kind of mediator character. And I'm glad it wasn't just someone they introduced in this episode just to be a mediator. I imagine they probably could have rewritten it so like Marion played that sort of role. But I'm glad it was a pre-established character, and obviously it does add layers to her as well. So I thought she was great in this one.
Yeah, I think that's fair enough. My next positive, which may be a controversial one, I think Ben Miller's good in this.
He's my second positive.
Yay! We're on the same page. I thought when you said side characters at the start, I was like, oh my God, please don't be Ben Miller.
No. Ben Miller's good.
Okay, good.
Ben Miller's the good one. I
think
he understands what this episode's supposed to be.
Yes.
Like, I don't vibe with it, but he absolutely he knows this is a silly episode.
Yes.
Like and the world, or like stuff like Doctor Who. They're not trying to be serious with this episode. They are achieving what they want to do, even though it's not my thing. So it's not like they're trying to be serious and it just is completely shit. And I think Ben Miller absolutely understood the assignment.
Yeah. I think it's straight from his introduction where he just takes people and kills them. It's like, oh, goodbye. He's so camp and over the top. And if you compare it with the sheriff in BBC's Robin Hood, they're completely different sheriffs. And I think for me, I'm constantly comparing this Robin Hood to BBC's Robin Hood because
one.
They're made by the same company, so you're going to compare the two. People that watch the show that grew up in that era will be thinking of the other Robin Hood, so there will be comparisons to draw. But I think Ben Miller, he's very much approached this like a pantomime.
Yes, he's a pantomime,
and he is the pantomime villain of this episode. And I think he's great. I think it would have been interesting had they kept the original ending, because I think he was revealed as a robot, wasn't he?
Yes.
Originally, so I think it would have been interesting, and part of me is glad that they never officially properly revealed that. There's a hint in one of the lines where he's like, "I'm more than human" or whatever.
Yeah.
But I don't think they ever go so far as to be like, "Oh."
Yeah, because Robin's supposed to cut his head off, and he'd be all robot,
sparks, etc. Yeah. So I'm glad they keep him as just a delusional man that may or may not have originally been a sheriff.
Yeah.
I'm very glad with that, and yeah, the scene, the sort of villainous side you see with him and Clara is great, and sort of the terrible undertones of sexual assault, I think, are delivered with quite menace, and I'm like, this is quite a lot. And then he does the whole, "I'm going to take over Lincoln and Derby and the world."
And Derby. He does like the super dramatic stuff really well, but also just he can really nail like just underselling the comedy as well. Like it. Yeah.
It's great. He's great.
Good range, really. He's so good.
And when we sort of first see him and Robin's interaction, where he's like, "Oh, he's not so secret," and he's so like sassy and very King James from The Witchfinders, I think.
Yes.
It's a very similar vibe, and I would love to see these two meet.
Can you imagine those two together? Make it happen, Big Finish. My first Big Finish purchase would absolutely be that.
King James and the Sheriff of Nottingham. Oh, amazing. But yeah, I think he's great. I think, I've got a criticism, not of him, but of sort of other things around him that we'll come on to. But I think he delivers his role fantastically in this. He understands the brief, he understands the episode, and yeah, he's another standout. Thank God it's a guest character that is good, because sometimes we have them and they're just naff. Looking at you, Davina McCall.
Sorry about it, Davina.
Soz Davina. Ben Miller did a better job than you. Trained actor Ben Miller.
Ben Miller did a better acting performance than you. Who would have thought it?
Presenter Davina McCall. Sorry.
I love that.
So have you got anything else on Ben Miller? Any other thoughts?
I think you kind of nailed it, really. But yeah, he understood the assignment. He was great. Yeah. Sometimes just a villain who's evil for the sake of it is kind of refreshing nowadays, which is sad. But I think getting that from him is great. And yeah, he just nails all aspects of it. There are some underplayed bits, some overplayed bits, and he just does it really, really well. Yeah, he's just great. He's good. I enjoy him.
Yep. My final positive is the design of the robots.
That's one of my bonus ones as well. They're genuinely they didn't have to go this hard with those designs. I think they're genuinely
the way they shoot as well out of the crease in their eyebrows, I think is a really unique.
They did that figurine collection did one of the robots, and I've got one.
Yes, really cool. I think I've got one somewhere. But yeah, they're very classic Who as well. I think.
Yes, they are.
It's the kind of thing that you could have seen in is it the Sontaran? No, Sarah Jane's episode. Time Warrior. Is it that one where he's got the castle?
Yes, yeah, that's true.
Very similar to that one.
Iron Gron could have easily had some robots with him.
Yeah.
Well, they did have that robot, didn't they? That goes after.
Exactly. The one
that could have looked like that. Yeah, you're right.
And then what's the? Yeah, is it that one? The one with John Pertwee.
Now's it down.
And Sontarans. Yeah.
Time Warrior. Yeah.
Yeah, is that one? Yeah, good. I'm thinking the same one. Yeah, because he creates the robot and then John Pertwee pretends to be the robot and goes, "Oh, I made a terrible mistake" when he's getting chopped.
Incredible scene.
Yeah. I think they're very classic Who. They're such a unique design. I don't know whether they look like that and then they just happen to crash, or if they sorted the robot selves out to look like that when they crash. But either way, they're great. They're a good one-off. They don't need to have loads of personality because they're similar to the half-faced man in Deep Breath, which we obviously get a reference to. their sole purpose is to effectively die anyway, unbeknownst to them.
So true.
But yeah, I think they look great. They're a good just foil for Ben Miller to give him the pretense of being in control, when he's obviously not, and it's these robots, which is great because they're a disposable villain, but they have a bit of personality, unlike the Slabs, which are just.
Every time you mention the Slabs, that partly. I always forget they exist until you bring them up. I'm like, oh yeah.
Well, because they're like the box. They're like literally the worst case of.
That is bottom of the barrel,
like
goons, isn't it? In Doctor Who.
Exactly, and these are up there with the good goons. Like the
episode 1 and their budget ran out. They had people with motorcycle helmets on.
Oh, terrible. But yeah, I think the robots are great. I'd like to see more kind of medieval robot designs, medieval robots.
Yeah,
it's been a while
since we've had that kind of thing. They're just I really like that kind of vibe.
Yeah, and I like how they just destroy a man because he's spent. They're like, okay, goodbye. Oh, okay, all right then. So I like how sort of clinical they are as well. They're kind of like a better version of the Cybermen in the next Doctor, I think.
Yeah,
because they're effectively doing the same thing, building a machine to be run and whatever. Except,
I just think they're neat.
And there's gold. There's gold involved as well. So
always believe in
ties everywhere. So what's your final positive?
My final positive is something I don't really shout out that much, and I probably should give more attention to. But I've put the locations and all the exteriors. I thought they found some great kind of location filming and stuff. And they filmed most of the episode on location. I think it really shows, the forest areas and everything. I thought the castle area looked great. So I do think they fully realised the world that they're in. It's hard to think of it. Oh yeah, this is definitely like a set in a TV show, because it isn't, because they filmed it all on location. Everything just feels very lived in and real, which is kind of impressive for an episode based on Robin Hood, with robots and all that kind of jazz. So yeah, it just, for some reason, it just really stuck out to me in this one. I just, maybe because deep in the Robin Hood lore, and I was reading the book when we first watched this episode in time for this, so I guess I was kind of picturing it in my head. I was like, wow, they really kind of nailed this, didn't have to go so hard, but they did. So yeah, Doctor Who's often very good, I think, with locations and everything like that. But this did kind of, it had the right personality, I guess, which can be quite hard to do. So I will give them kudos for that.
Yeah, I think that the production design overall for this episode, I think, was good. From the costumes to the setting and locations, I think they did a really good job. As they often do when it's not just a CGI room. More often than not, they do a really good job with on location filming, and they're still doing that to this day with the 60th and all that kind of stuff. They had some good locations in there, except for Wild Blue Yonder's horrific CGI rooms. But can't all be winners. I don't really have any other positives, unfortunately. So what are your additional positives?
I had, like with you, I had the robot designs, and I love the Doctor and Robin's kind of farewell, which we already talked about as well, to show their kind of growth with each other. And what's the line? History is a burden, stories make us fly.
Yeah.
Why is it that some really terrible episodes have absolute banging lines like that? Next season, The Woman Who Lived, which for me is my least favorite episode of that season. Come at me, Sleep No More. I like it. The Doctor has a line in that. It's like, I didn't know your heart would rust because I kept it beating. I'm like, whoa, slow down. Why is the rest of the script not as good as that line?
It feels like they thought of that line and went, I need to think of other things to go around this line.
And I think that line in this episode is still like my bio on Facebook. I don't think I've changed it since 2014. 10 years of having that. It's just so good.
It's a really good line.
And I think it's very true, both those characters. We're literally watching, a story featuring both of them. And, again, I guess speaking to Clara's character, why she felt so connected to Robin Hood. She kind of, the Doctor's kind of her own personal fictional hero as well. And they lean into that in Last Christmas as well. And Clara says something along the lines of like, I've always believed in Santa Claus, but he looked a bit different to me, which is very wholesome. So I like how they end up tying those two characters together. And see why they should probably have more common ground than they did at the start. So I really liked the little goodbye scene. It just, I think it always works in like, obviously the Van Gogh goodbye scene is the iconic one. But even like the Charles Dickens ones in Unquiet Dead, and obviously Mark Gatiss also wrote that as he wrote this one. You know, I think when they say goodbye to like the historical characters and everything and talk about their legacies and stuff, it always just works very well. Winston Churchill. Well, he just kept coming back.
Give me your key. Give me your key.
Oh, you little bugger. Yeah. So it just works. I think this is one of my favorite examples of it. Because again, I think it's just very underplayed. I do think the actor who plays Robbie does a good job with what he's given in this. And yeah, funny enough, he's playing Leonardo da Vinci at the same time in a TV show. So, you know, imagine if they got Leonardo da Vinci episode later in this season and they just got the same guy to play him. It'd been very funny. Just a Clara situation all over again. But yeah, I just think their little goodbye was very effective as well. And I kind of wish the rest of the episode kind of had that level of heart, but unfortunately it didn't.
Yeah. No, yes. So we must now go on to our negatives for this episode. I'm just going to kick us off with, and I know this was the point, but it was just a bit basic. All the Robin Hood stuff was just very basic.
Yeah. There's just no time to really do it justice, unfortunately.
No, I mean, you know, the BBC TV show had what, 3, 5 seasons?
3, yeah.
Three? Oh, it feels like it was 3. So much more, but 3 whole seasons to do so much.
They only ended it because they had to quit, and that. Well, I guess we're kind of have to end it. So
guess that's it. You know, guess he's dead.
Guess we're gonna have to get everyone off.
Yeah, I think it hit the cliche ones, but you're going to get more from the Disney Robin Hood movie than you are from this, and that's probably only 20 minutes longer. Because
probably
those Disney films back in that time were like 70 minutes long, so it's probably really not that much longer than this.
And he's a fox, which is great fun.
And he's a fox, and they're all.
And he's also an animal that's called a fox.
Yes, but I mean, all you really see from this, if you're watching this as a basic Robin Hood, you don't know anything about Robin Hood. All you're going to find out is he's good at bow and arrows, and he talks about stealing from the rich and giving to the poor. They never once do anything to benefit anybody else.
There's no time to probably delve into that. And like the Merry Men, they're just there. They have nothing to do, and that's a shame because I mean, to be fair, in the book they have nothing to do and they have no personalities apart from like 2 of them. But
I mean, I liked when he was like, "Oh, give it a rest," and he took away at the end. I thought that was some good, some good stuff between them. But other than that, they were just there because they're a cliche for Robin Hood.
My favourite Merry Men moment was the Doctor being like, "If you were real, you have 6 months to live." I am real. And he's like, bye. That's the best.
That's fine. But then the realization at the end was like, "Oh my god, he really does have 6 months to live."
That should have been the end of the episode, turning and looking at him sadly.
He's just sat there with his head in his hands at the TARDIS sleeps. But yeah, I mean, it's very basic. I liked the twist on the archery competition where the Doctor came in and took over basically. I think that was a nice twist, but it was still just very underwhelming. I think from a Robin Hood perspective, I think they could have done it a lot better if they just sort of had a bit more thought. Like you could just, instead of just arriving in the wood and conveniently being like, "Oh, here's Robin Hood," you could arrive in a town and see Robin Hood in action taking money from someone to distribute it or something like that, But it's very much like, yes, we definitely do this. Just trust us. We definitely give to the poor. We don't just steal stuff. Don't you worry about it. But I get there's only 45 minutes ish, but I think it might be. You don't necessarily need to have the whole Merry Men gang. You could just have 1 or 2, and keep it fairly simple. But it's where they wanted to go, and they sort of hit the basics. I know there's a novel with the 4th Doctor and the Adventures of Robin Hood or something like that. So I'd be interested to read that and see if he's characterized the same, considering it's supposed to be the same person, and that book's come out after this episode. But yeah, unfortunately, just a little bit too basic for my liking. Your first negative?
The robots plot was dumb and stupid. I just again basic really. I always hate it when it's like, oh, and the plan was always going to go wrong anyway. It's like, so why was the Doctor here? Like, they didn't need to do anything then. Like Indiana Jones, he didn't need to do anything. The Nazis still would have died. You know,
I guess
like,
for this
that
one,
feels
it's
a bit stupid.
I guess with this one, the spaceship just would have blown up lower atmosphere and killed people, whereas he's there and it goes up slightly more. But then if
it's just not a good reflection of the villains when it's like, oh, their plan always would have failed anyway, and they're always
because they can, especially because they can get the same stuff that the Doctor's looking at. It's like they know this. Why are they just going to be like, whoopsie?
Yeah, and if they need gold so desperately, why are they giving away a gold arrow in the competition? Like, you need that shit. Why are you giving it to someone? That makes no sense. That's so stupid. So that wasn't an ideal thing to do. And the way that guy says golden arrow has been burned into my brain for 10 years now. Like, man, he must have been sick of saying golden arrow. That's every single line he had. I think he said it. So yeah, their plot was just a bit dumb, and I think kind of undermines them. A very loose tie to the Promised Land thing as well. I feel like they didn't really need that. I think they kind of, you know, we see Missy and stuff referenced throughout the entire series anyway. I don't think we needed this one to tie into that. Especially when they already have a whole separate thing going on with like the Robin Hood legend and everything. So
they could have had the old guy that was killed in the basement, like again appear in Missy's little thing. But maybe that's too similar to what they've already done.
Maybe a bit too repetitive with Gretchen. But yeah, it just felt like an unnecessary tie. Really. I mean, it's fine. It was like one line, but still, it didn't really do anything to add or flesh out their motivations because we don't really know what's going on in the Promised Land at this point either. I think they did that they did that better with the half-faced man, I think. So yeah, just their whole plot was a little bit like, oh dear.
Yeah, I think that's fair. My sort of next negative kind of links in with that as well, and it's just the golden arrow ending, where they just shoot it.
Oh no, I've hurt my arm. You'll have to do it, Doctor. So why are you in this episode, Robin? Why are you here?
Yeah, and it's like, oh yeah, I tricked it. Actually, I can't do shit.
Yeah,
getting three people to fire this bow would not make it that would not make it any better. That would make it worse. You've got so many merry men there. Can one of them not fire an arrow? But then even so, it's just
this big ass spaceship. Like, you're gonna hit it. It's fine.
First of all, it's flying away. There's no way the arrow would catch up to them. Secondly, it just sticks into the end, and that's enough, I guess. It doesn't even go into like the engine.
Its presence. Oh, good.
Yeah. So I just think, and if that's the little bit of gold they needed, as you mentioned, why did they get rid of it?
Why give it away? This makes sense.
I think it feels like they just sort of. It would have been better if they just imploded and went, "Oh yes, when I was going on the computers, I made sure that blah 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 blah."
Yeah, I installed a virus on your computer.
Now
you're all dead.
Yeah. And then you can make, the last 10 minutes about him and, Robin and his merry men evacuating everyone out of the castle and saving everyone so that it shows that they do help the poor people and they don't just talk about
is tragically killed as they try and save him.
The one guy that's about to die just sacrifices himself.
The molten gold vat that the sheriff falls into tips onto him and he's tragically killed.
God. But, I think that would have been slightly better than just guess we'll fire an arrow at it, because the physics don't work. The arrow's not going to go fast.
It's just not realistic in this time travel show.
It's really not realistic. If I'm thinking, I mean, this whole thing. But I think that plays into the whole thing with the episode overall, is that it has that slightly fantastical sort of tint to it. And I think when we've had Deep Breath and Into the Dalek that have been very sort of like gritty and grounded, this one just kind of, and especially next week as well with Listen, that's also gritty and grounded. This one just feels very out of place, and it all just seems very like a dream. Like Clara's just had this dream that they've gone, and then that's what this is, rather than actually being an actual episode. But just the ending is just, it is what it is. But it's just
I think we just needed to see a sillier side of Troll. I think before this, if we had a bit if we had like Flatline before this, when he's like the dancing in the TARDIS, successfully escaped it, just to see it more playful. It's like maybe it would have been a bit more feasible, but
and I mean this probably would have worked well in season 10 as well, because he is more he is more of a happy man. He's more of like a jokey sort of guy then, or this definitely is clearly for Matt Smith and his whole fairy tale-esque vibes that his whole run had. But you know, it's too late for him, too soon for Capaldi. It just kind of sits in that whatever.
Yeah,
but,
it's a shame.
So what's your second negative?
My second one, I think it kind of leans into stuff we were talking about earlier, with like stuff just kind of like, I guess, happening or cutting stuff out. And you know, the whole sheriff beheading thing was unfortunate that they had to remove that. You know, it's just beyond their control, but I think they probably made the right choice with that. But I just felt like a lot of the energy was drained because a lot of off-screen action just took place, or whatever what we got was just under there. I don't think like the fight choreography was like anything too crazy or special in what we did get, but then the guy gets vaporized off screen. Robin cuts off the robot's arm. That's off screen. He just does that, hiya, and then it's gone. And like, I want to like, I feel like we should have seen more of that. So I guess it's like we were saying earlier, when they're just like, oh yeah, we do all this stuff. We give them, instead of actually seeing them do it, which would have helped the episode and helped the characters out a bit. We're just told that they do those things, and here we are aware that they happen, but we don't see them happen. I think it loses, like, robs the episode of some sort of impact. So, you know, while it's unfortunate the whole sheriff beheading thing, and I understand why they had to do that, there's still other examples of them just not showing things. I imagine maybe it's a budget thing and stuff like that. Fight choreography clearly wasn't fire on all cylinders with this one. But I think it did leave me kind of wanting something. You know, Robin Hood and his merry men are very kind of actiony, and they do all this kind of crazy stuff. And I feel like they tried to do that, but couldn't quite get there.
Yeah, I think that's fair enough. My sort of final negative almost leans into that, in terms of maybe what was not used. Ben Miller again. I just think he's not in it enough. I want more of him. I think if you just trim it down to, you know, the sheriff, maybe he is just an evil robot and it's just him rather than other robots, you know. And then because we see some good stuff with him, but he's just kind of too much is focused on the arrow contest and all that kind of thing. And I just want more of him, more of him versus sort of the Doctor, because I think they have like maybe 2 scenes together. They have the one where he's like looking over the edge. Yeah, looking over the edge. He's like, "Oh, she'd have been a good queen," and then that's it. Then he's there when they're fighting on the thing. But you know, that's about it. I know Clara has the whole thing for, you know, that's obviously leading into where it's going to go. But it feels very much like the Doctor.
Yeah, I think that's another thing that was missing. Like, we didn't get a proper Doctor confronts the villain scene, which I feel like you want to see the Doctor face down with the sheriff, but we didn't get it.
Yeah, and especially Ben Miller, where he's firing all these panto villains. I think he would have, you know, that would have been great. I'd have loved that. Yeah. But I just wanted more of him. I don't think he was necessarily used to his full potential. You know, for what he was used and how he was used and what he gave was great. And, you know, it's one of the highlights of the episode. But there could have been more, I think.
We need a Target novelization.
Well, funnily enough, in my notes, I did put this is ripe for a Target novel, because I thought that again when I rewatched it today. I was like, there's so much here where you could just add in so much more stuff. You could have a little bit more time with Robin and the Merry Men and sort of do that thing. You could have more.
It'd be a significantly better story.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, funnily enough, it seems silly because it's obviously going from book to TV show to book, so it would seem, you know, a bit silly. But
they just did that with the Fourth Doctor.
So. Exactly. So, you know, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I think they'd be able to add so much more if they did a Target novel. But at the same time, it's obviously not an episode that's talked about. There's obviously history around when it came out. So I don't know if they'd want to be
they simply had to do the Crimson Horror. There was no other choice.
Of course, yeah. That was the one they had to do, and the one they had to absolutely butcher. The worst one of all. Although I don't think I've read the Eaters of Light one yet. So don't forget that's also out there.
They did the Eaters of Light. Oh yeah, that's.
I'm pretty sure they did. Yeah. I'm pretty sure.
Yes, I feel like I remember seeing that.
I'm just very going to quickly check it because I'm almost 100% sure.
But all you can do is improve that.
Well,
I like that episode. I like that episode less than this one. So all it can do is improve.
Yeah,
surely
that's true. So yeah, what's your final negative?
My final one. I mean, I just kind of think of the Merry Men thing now, so I probably put that in like my official third. So my other additional one. The spoon fight is just so stupid.
Yeah,
it fits the vibe of the episode, but it doesn't fit 12. At least not yet.
It's
it's nice because Seven used spoons a lot as like weapons and distraction stuff. So I get it. It's Capaldi being a bit of a fanboy as well. But I'm like, this is absolutely something like 11 would probably do, and like this feels like, I know they obviously had to rewrite it a lot because I think 11 and Robin would have just gotten on right from the off.
Yes.
So obviously they did have to rewrite a chunk when Capaldi was cast. But I feel like this is the one thing they're like, I insist that this stays in. I want the spoon fight, and it just feels like. And because it's like the first interaction they have right at the start, I'm like, oh no, no, this isn't a good start. I'm not used to the corniness yet. I can't deal with it so soon. So it's like when you're watching a musical but you're not feeling it yet. So it's very cheesy. I'm like, I hate this. I hate this. I hate this. And you're not, you're not in the swing of it. And it's like starting off with Capaldi just bursting into song. He might as well have just done that.
Would have been better if I'm being honest. Probably really would have been better if he just started.
What I would have given
music in this one, of course.
Capaldi to do a musical episode.
My only additional negative, and this is a very silly negative, is when they're doing that whole thing like, look, here's you, Robin Hood. You're a legend. Here's all your adaptations.
Absolute legend.
They missed the golden opportunity to just throw in BBC Robin Hood PNG. I was like, come on, it's right there. You've owned the rights to it. Just put the picture in.
Well, do they anymore? Do they in 2014?
That's true, yeah. They might not. But I was just like,
Jonas Armstrong might have said, no, you can't use my face anymore. No,
yeah, I guess it depends on when the contracts run out, but it feels like there was a golden opportunity there. I was like, oh, are they gonna shut? Oh no, and it just sort of went, oh, all right then, never mind.
Is he?
I think it's a thing that's very unique to, I think, myself, because I love the Robin Hood BBC show. It ran at the same time as what I think maybe series 2 to 4. Ran that same time.
I think it ended in 2009. I want to say.
Yeah. So
I remember. I think it was like the series 2 finale of Merlin. Yeah. And then the last episode of Robin Hood is on like the same Saturday night, and I remember just being at my nan's watching them back to back, just there like.
Amazing.
Watching the dragon, watching John Hurt as a dragon just burn shit down, be like, yes, and then sobbing at the final episode of Robin Hood straight afterwards.
Oh, I know.
They don't make TV like that anymore.
They really don't. But I think that's probably something.
They definitely lent into the more like internationally known Robin Hoods with that, rather than just the British one.
more of the generic ones as well.
Yeah.
But I think that for me, having that god tier adaptation of Robin Hood in my memory as something that I remember so keenly, and then having this one in what effectively a crossover of two of the shows I really liked, and it's all went and it just okay then.
It was simply too dark and gritty for this episode.
It's clearly, obviously, but it is what it is. This episode could have been done a lot better. Any other negatives from yourself?
I think that's everything. We'd like more from the Merry Men, but that's about it, really.
And more from Marion.
Well, Marion was okay.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't.
Better.
It might have just been me, but I didn't realize it was Marion until they were like, "Here's Marion." I was like, "Oh."
Well, it is supposed to be like it's her.
And that was intentional, isn't it? Yeah.
They don't set it up at all that it's her, really. Yeah.
Especially because she's
in the episode before.
Yeah.
They mentioned she's missing and she'd been kidnapped by the sheriff, so it does make sense. But
but the way
I like the reveal that was her.
But... Yeah, the way they imply it is like she's like gone, as in she's literally nowhere here.
She's dead.
Especially because like, don't they land and then they meet the Merry Men and then she's taken?
I can't remember.
I think, because I don't think it's taken and then they land the TARDIS, unless it's in the TARDIS. We're going arrow shot, title credits, then taken and then Robin Hood.
I'm not sure.
Either way, it feels like he shouldn't know that she's missing, with the way that it was put in. I think is it feels very janky.
She was just ghosting him, and he was like, "She must be something horrible's happened to her.
She must be gone." Oh, and then the doctor's like, "Just come on, he's fine. Just come on, just speak to him again. It's okay."
Yeah, the doctor just drops her back, and she's like, "Oh shit!
Oh god!
Thought I'd gotten away from you. You annoying fuck."
Guess I'll have to fake my own death.
And then die for real.
Oh dear. Fun facts for this episode.
Let's have a look. Let's rediscover these for myself. There's not that many, so we're all right.
Oh, it's a surprise.
Okie dokie. The working title of the episode was Robots of Sherwood. The S was removed from robots to make the pun in the title sound better, because obviously Robin of Sherwood is.
For the longest of time, I've always called it Robots of Sherwood. So
well, you are a fake fan.
It did. Well, technically, I'm an even more of a fan because it was original title was Robots. So.
Well, working title isn't necessarily original. I'm sure it had other ones. A scene in which the sheriff is beheaded and revealed to be a robot was edited out of the episode at the last minute, having been deemed inappropriate in light of recent beheadings of 2 American journalists by the terrorist group ISIS. However, the sheriff calling himself half man, half machine, and the scene showing his hands in the molten gold are left in to imply as such. So, some things they just simply couldn't get rid of. One of the images of Robin Hood seen on the computer is Patrick Troughton, the second Doctor. Troughton was the first actor to play Robin Hood on TV. So that's fun.
There you go.
There you go. I hate to bring another bad episode into it, but this is the first episode since Journey to the Centre of the TARDIS not to have any scenes set on present-day Earth.
Oh, so, good, I guess.
Hooray.
This is why they need to... Everyone's like, oh, they spent too much time on Earth. This is why they should, all right? We've had 2 terrible episodes. This is why.
Plenty of decent ones in between. The archery tournament and the golden arrow are the main staples of the Robin Hood legend that the episode adapts, which we've kind of talked about already. The episode title also references Robin of Sherwood, an ITV series whose second series competed directly against Doctor Who's 22nd season on Saturday nights in 1985.
BBC just rubbing their hands in victory as they did. They've got Doctor Who. They had their own Robin Hood adaptation as well. They're like, we've won ITV. You can have your terrible Demons TV show.
You can have Demons and Primeval. We'll always have Doctor Who. Peter Capaldi celebrated his 56th birthday whilst filming this story. He can be seen receiving a Dalek-themed cake in the corresponding episode of Doctor Who Extra, which is very nice.
That's very cute.
The Doctor initially theorises he and Clara are in a miniscope with Robin Hood and his merry men, a device that features in the 3rd Doctor story, Carnival of Monsters. Nice. My God, continuity. And then finally, location filming took place at Forest 4 and Caerphilly Castle, settings previously used in The Stolen Earth and Journey's End. The tortured episode Day 1, aka Sex Gas.
Yay!
Hooray! The forest was also used in the Surgeon Adventure story, The Last Sontaran. And the forest was also used in Doctor Who in Vampires of Venice, and the castle was also used in Nightmare in Silver. So a lot of reuse.
When do they use the forest in Vampires of Venice?
During a forest bit, yes. I don't know. Huh. Is there a bit where they're camping overnight or something? I thought that maybe is in my memory.
No, they're in a house, aren't they? I don't know. That's fine.
Either way, it was used for something.
Nice.
So there you go.
Lovely.
Those are all your fun facts for you.
Excellent. Good fun facts once again. All that it leaves to finally finish Robot of Sherwood and never have to think about it again. Out of 10, what are you giving this episode?
I don't know. 5 feels a bit too generous. Because 5 is just like average, it's okay.
Uh-huh.
And I think it's a bit below average for me. I think I'd go 4.5.
Wow. Mine is a 5.5.
Okay.
So I mean it's average. It's good, it's not an episode where I'll be
There's been worse.
Oh, that's on. Yeah, it's not like I'm like, oh, I'm just gonna turn this off. If it's on and I'm watching it as a rewatch,
it didn't offend me.
I'll have it on. No. And it's good for in the background, you can watch it wherever. You don't have to pay attention. It's nowhere near the worst episode we've ever seen.
No.
By far. Looking at you, any episode in RTD1 that was horrifically bad. Long game.
I think if I wasn't a big Robin Hood fan, I think I probably would have enjoyed it a little bit more. It still wouldn't have been a favourite. But I think I'm like, they could have just done this and they could have done this, and that feels like a bit of a shame. But I think that also probably would take a 0.5 off. So I think in my heart, I'd probably give it a 5, but I'm going to be 4.5. I think.
I think that's fair. And this is a good episode to watch with the family. You know, if you want to get your kids into the show, it's probably a good one to watch.
I think that also influenced this because so obviously it was Saturday. My dad had a friend over. For some reason, it was just me and my dad's friend in the room when this episode was on, and he was like, "This isn't very good, is it?" It's not always like this. I promise.
I promise this isn't it.
Because like he knew Doctor Who was like my personality. I'm like, please. And I think the next time he was present for an episode was Heaven Sent. And he was like, "What the fuck is going on? Please,
I've only been gone 7 weeks. What's happening?" Oh,
you don't understand how clever this is. I promise.
Hey, I'm sorry. Oh God.
So hilarious, really.
But yeah, it is what it is. It's a fine episode. Next week, however,
here we fucking go.
It's a listen. It's
Series 8 begins, folks.
Probably one of the most talked about episodes. The bit I remember the most is obviously the whatever the fuck that thing is on the bed. Horrific. And I don't know. I dread watching it again because every time I see it, I'm like, oh, I just hate it. But I like the episode. I think the sort of the concept behind it is really good, really intriguing.
Cool. It's probably his favorite episode of his first series.
I think that's a good reason. It's fair enough. We get a little bit into his history as well, into the Doctor's history. Which is quite nice. Obviously, we get more Danny Pink, which is great.
Yeah.
Although,
Austin Pink.
Is this where they have the date?
This is where
the horrific date. So I'm not sure if
awkward, bad date.
I'm not sure if I'm ready to rewatch that yet.
There's going to be some cringe moments in there.
And I'm pretty sure that I'll have to double check, but I'm pretty sure it was in either a book or a comic or a Big Finish that the knock-in that you hear outside the space station is supposedly River Song and Jack Harkness playing a prank. How true that is?
I think that was just like a fan theory on Twitter.
I hope it is because it's very silly and unnecessary.
Yeah, it's definitely not like an official thing.
I can't remember if that had sources, so I'll double check between now and when we come out, so I can come on.
I think it's just Twitter is always desperate for Jack and River to meet.
Haven't they? They must have already in Big Finish.
They definitely do off screen because she, I think she gets his gun. And that's the same gun. So at some point they must have met. Yeah, she probably killed him once and took it or something. That's
true, yeah. And she has his vortex manipulator, so but not
Dorian kills him. Anyway, I guess for that.
Yes, yeah. Well, it's still on his hand. Remember when that appears?
Yeah,
because it's fresh off the hand. Yeah.
Just can't escape severed hands.
I really can't. But I'm excited for this episode. I'm excited to finally be past Robot of Sherwood, so we can finally kick on.
It's been Capaldi. There's just been so many delays. Like it hasn't helped that I don't think it was the strongest episode anyway. But busy time. I moved.
Yeah.
Christmas, New Year, crazy.
And new Doctor Who. So much new Doctor Who.
New Doctor Who. 60th Christmas special. Doctor Who news coming out.
So much news. Yeah.
So I'm glad that we've finally got this out of the way.
Yeah. So what are you expecting out of Listen? What do you remember? When was the last time you watched it?
God, probably close to 10 years now. I don't tend to really rewatch things anymore. I tend to watch them once and then leave it at that. I used to rewatch Doctor Who all the time and stuff, but I just don't rewatch anything these days. Unless it's a 20-minute comedy, I will not rewatch it. So I don't have the time for this. I'd rather be watching new things. So I am excited to revisit this and see if I still really enjoy it, because I very much did at the time. I think it was probably my favourite. Well, no, Mummy on the Orient Express was my favourite episode of Series 8 at the time, but this was definitely up there. So I am excited to revisit it and see all the shenanigans. I think there's a great line. I know Capaldi's kind of savage in this. So I think, I think he kind of says to Clara, like, "Oh, you can come with me now. When she gets back from the date." He's like, "You've taken your makeup off." She's like, "No, I haven't." Like, he's just so rude. And he steals a guy's coffee when he's looking around the house and everything. It's just so good. And there's a bit where he's like, "I can't find Wally in this book." And like, he's not in every book.
There.
What? So there's quite that one-offs like that to look forward to. And I think this is where Capaldi really starts to like shine and properly come into his own. You know, I think he absolutely dominates this episode. They really explore the Doctor's psyche, like his obsession over like, is this monster thing real? Is this like feeling of something under the bed real, and everything like that, and how they tie that back into Clara's influence on the Doctor's life, and you know, the barn from the 50th and everything. I am excited to revisit that and preparing to cringe my way through the Danny and Clara stuff. But you know, just the idea of going on the date is cringy to me anyway. So, you know, it will be interesting to see how that goes. Cause I just remember that like they're talking about he's digging wells when he's in the war, and she's like, "Don't worry, he'll build a well." I'm just like, no. But you know, it very, very briefly it works out for them. So
it certainly does, very briefly.
Until he's brutally killed and transformed into a Cyberman. But that's for a couple of months' time. But yeah, this is always one of my favourites of Series 8 and one of my standouts. Probably for Capaldi in general, one of my standouts. You know, Stephen Moffat is most Stephen Moffat this kind of episode.
Yes.
And I look forward to revisiting it.
Yep, I think that's fair enough. I'm very excited. I'm very excited for this. I'm very excited for the rest of the series. And obviously, we'll have any Doctor Who news that comes out in the meantime. We will also talk about. We've got this in the bag now, so it's
finally done. We've got Listen. We've got Time Heist, which I'm really, really excited to watch again. Then we've got Caretaker. And then we got Kill the Moon.
I haven't seen Caretaker in a while. Really,
I hated it. So. I'm definitely going to not like it. I'm telling you now. If I don't like this episode, if I didn't like Robot or Sherwood, I'm not going to like the Caretaker because that's even sillier.
Okay. I've not seen it in so long.
Written by the transphobe, so not ideal.
Okay, that's unfortunate. And on that note,
Capaldi got him kicked off the show apparently. So
good.
This is not the last one he wrote.
Well done, Peter. Good for you. But yeah, that will be it. Unless something else happens in the meantime, we will hopefully be back next time with Listen. Bye.
Bye.